Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CBT podcast. I'm here with Ethan. I'm here with Rod, and today we're going to be talking about Ethan's favorite basketball team, the Philadelphia 76ers. So the
Don't get
news
me
came out
started.
today. The news came out today that Harden declined his player option for the reason of taking a $15 million pay cut to help those Sixers win a championship. Long awaited for Harden, long awaited for the city of Philadelphia. Rod, how do you feel about the Sixers offseason so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit, I hate the Sixers. I don't like James Harden, but I'll say this, a rare Harden W here by taking a pay cut in order to allow the Sixers to bring in the old man, Mr. 3 points per game, PJ Tucker,
Hmm.
which I don't really like him either, but still, this was a good addition for the Sixers. If you want 3 and D, and I mean 1 3 a game in defense,
From the
that's
corner.
who PJ Tucker is. Do you want to talk about this contract breakdown?
I mean, yeah, they signed him to a 3-year, $33 million deal, which doesn't sound that bad for PJ Tucker at face value. But then when you look at it, they're going to be paying a 39-year-old PJ $11.5 million.
Oh,
And he plays a role that he gets tossed around, beat up, elbows to the face, body, everything. I don't think he's going to age too gracefully. But Ethan, as the world's biggest Sixers fan, how have you felt about them so far?
And no, sir. Let me tell you something. They've only gotten worse over the years. They've only gotten worse. Adding PJ Tucker, Daniel House,
oh.
well, Tyrese Maxey. I mean, that basically has been one of their best players.
Hold on, stop
Fat Boy
talking.
Harden.
Let's
No.
let's no, let's
Fat
talk
Boy
about
Harden, Mr. Crybaby Embiid. Come on, man. Come
let's
on.
talk about Tyrese Maxey real quick because Tyrese Maxey is the one Sixers player that I actually kind of like. In his rookie
He's
year, he
solid.
averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists on 46% from the field, 30% from three, and 87% from the free throw line. Not bad for a rookie, but last year, when you would think he had his sophomore slump, he didn't. He had his sophomore bump. This past season, he averaged 18, 3, and 4 on 49, 43, 87 splits. So he was knocking right on the door of a 50, 40, 90 season in only his second year in the NBA. So, I mean, how can you say bad things about Tyrese Maxey? He's only going to keep getting better from here.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Tyrese, solid player. I'll give him that. But doesn't skip about the fact that, Fat Boy Harden over there. Let's see how he turns out. We'll see how Joel Embiid will be, especially with his injuries. They'll be a solid fourth seed, because the East only has like a good top four, top five, maybe. Debatable, but I mean, with the Cavaliers up and coming. Other than that, I mean, it's the Sixers. I mean, the fan base. If the fan base doesn't eat you alive, I mean,
Some
because
crackhead on the side of the street will.
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much that's what happens. The Sixers get let down every year. And I'm all for it, Celtics fan over here. I'm all for it.
Yeah, not a lot of love for the Sixers over here on this podcast. And let me tell you firsthand about Tyrese Maxey. Little old Fred VanVleet got his heart broken and his ankles snatched all playoff series against the Sixers trying to deal with Tyrese Maxey. So I know how good he is. But if we take a look at the Sixers offseason as a whole, I do think it was a net positive because on draft night, they did make a very surprising move to just snatch away DeAnthony Melton from the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't remember what they gave up. Was it their own late first round pick
I
for
believe that sounds right.
for
It
DeAnthony
wasn't very
Melton?
much.
Yeah. The Grizzlies could afford to part ways with them, but it's a good pickup for the Sixers because if we're calling a spade here, the Sixers are very top heavy. They got their big four, I guess if you want to call it that, of Harden, Maxey, Tobias Harris, and Joel
Oh,
Embiid. But
Tobias.
yeah, Tobias Harris, we could make a whole video on him. But I think you could call a team top heavy, like I just called the Sixers, but you could also acknowledge that they do have a bit of depth, especially with their role players. I think the Anthony Melton's huge for him. PJ Tucker, when he is one of the best role players as far as filling his specific role in the
Mhm.
league, but they do have a couple guys off the bench I want to talk about. You got Korkmaz, you got Matisse Thybulle, Shake Milton, and Paul Reed. They need at least two of those four I just named, they need to be big contributors for them off the bench. And that sounds scary if you're a Sixers fan, because you know all four of those guys have been let downs in the past. But this is kind of a last chance. They got rid of Danny Green. He tore his ACL in the playoffs, I believe. He's out the door. So they need big time minutes from four guys who in the past have struggled to even get minutes on the Sixers.
Yeah, I would trust not one of those four players that you mentioned to play any solid minutes on any sort of team that has the intentions to compete. But as you said, I think the DeAnthony Melton trade made a lot of sense for both sides. He's one of those athletic guards that can really lock down the other team's best guard. And every once in a while, he has some crazy highlight dunk. So it's a good little energizer. And for the Grizzlies, that opened up more minutes for superstar John Conchar. But we'll save that for another day. Ethan said the Sixers are a 4 seed. I think you're cutting them a little bit short. I think they're the third best team in the East behind Boston and Milwaukee, because they have two players who at their peak, if they play like we expect them to, are MVP level players in Embiid and James Harden. And if last year they didn't work as well as I think we all thought, because Harden was just disappointing. I mean, took 2 shots in the second half of an elimination game. But I don't think we'll see that Harden again this year. I think him and Embiid are going to start to figure things out and may have one of the deadliest pick and roll games in NBA history. But that would require James Harden to move away from his favorite isolation game and just play with Embiid more.
Yeah, this team definitely, or at least the success and ceiling of this team depends on what James Harden we see next year. We already know what we're going to get out of Embiid. He's emerged. He's the face of this team. He's a 30-point scorer. He's a good defender. We know what we're getting from him. But even if we get 80% of the Rockets' James Harden, what we saw from him as a scorer, because there were times last season where, I mean, I saw in the playoffs 15 points, 12 points. That's just not what you didn't trade for James Harden for him to put up 12 points in the playoff game. You just didn't. So you need him to figure it out, like you said, but you also need a consistent Tobias Harris, as weird as that sounds. We've never seen that before. But I do think the Sixers, as far as the standings go, I think there are 4 teams that could realistically get the first seed. That's Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, and Philadelphia. I don't know how hard any of those teams will try in the regular season. I think they're all focused on the playoffs. But I do think, however way it shakes out, any one of those 4 could be the first seed. And I think Philly has a real shot at that.
No, definitely. I mean, JJ, you were kind of disrespecting the Heat a little bit by saying that when we
Yeah.
both know how good the Heat are. So I just think, especially because my thing with the 76ers is that they're very top heavy, like Rod said. And I consider the Heat more of a bunch of role players that fit their role perfectly and all mesh well together. But definitely what kind of James Harden we get is definitely a big factor for them. If we get that first year Nets Harden, it's wraps. The
Yeah.
Sixers will be a big.
I don't think it's disrespectful to say that the Sixers are going to finish third, because then I think Miami's the 4 seed. I mean, I wasn't disrespecting the Heat by saying that. I was just saying that Sixers, like I said, they have 2 MVP caliber players, and I just don't think the Heat have anyone as talented that can match that. I mean, the Sixers had arguably the best player in basketball last year during the regular season, some people might say, and he performed well in the playoffs as well. So I think Philly, I mean, their ceiling is obviously a championship. They have enough to do it. It's a matter of will they do it? Will they let Philly down again? I'm going to go ahead and say they will, and they're going to exit in the second round to their arch rival, Boston Celtics, once again.
I cannot believe you have me defending the Heat. I cannot believe it. The Heat or the Sixers, that's crazy.
All right. Anyone got any final thoughts about the Sixers?
Yeah, it's hard for me to bet out the Sixers. It would require James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Doc Rivers and Tobias Harris to all put together a good postseason for them to make any sort of run. And I would bet heavily against that.
Yeah, and also one last thing to mention is I feel like the Sixers have been playing with fire for a long time now regarding Joel Embiid's health. I just feel like it's only a matter of time before he gets injured and misses a significant chunk, which we will see Philly just dip in the standings if that does happen, because he
Paul
is the
Reed
key to
starting
their
center.
team. Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's going to do it for us in today's video. Could ask that you please drop a like and subscribe. How well do you think Philly will do this season? What is their ceiling? Do you see them winning a championship? Where will they finish in the East standings? Will they tank for Wembanyama? Who knows? Thank you guys all for watching, and we will see you guys in the next episode.